Okay, maybe let's start. In the meantime, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alessio Pettino. I'm the knowledge coordinator of the EU SME Center in Beijing. It's a great pleasure to welcome you today here to this webinar. Topic is machinery. Of course, it's if not the most, is one of the most important sectors in Europe. A lot of European companies, especially the SMEs, are involved in this sector and are active in China or with China. So today's webinar will be divided into two main parts. We have two very seasoned, very high-level speakers joining this webinar. The first part will focus on market entry aspects, but not only, also on other market trends, especially in terms of localization, as well as the opportunities and the challenges that such trend it brings, especially against the backdrop of nearly zero international mobility between Europe and China. The second part will instead focus on HR, let's say, aspects, how to hire talents within the sector, how to retain such talent in the sectors, and so on. Before starting, I would like to spend a few minutes on the EU SME Center. For those of you who don't know us, the SME Center is a project funded by the European Union since 2010. Our mission is to help European SMEs to get ready to do business with China, in China, to get to know China, and to prepare them on how to maximize the opportunities and minimize risks and challenges. We are implemented by a consortium of 5 chambers of commerce and business organizations, which you can find at the bottom of this slide. And among these, Danish Chamber of Commerce, DCCC, is our main co-organizer today. We partner up with many associations, organizations, both from government and business, and we have a physical office in Beijing, which is where I am now. Very briefly, we provide 4 main type of services. Knowledge center, which is basically we write reports, guidelines, case studies on different sectors or also cross-cutting issues. And you can find this is a screenshot from our website. This knowledge center is accessible from our website. Here I highlighted 2 reports which are relevant for today's webinar. We have a report on industrial robots, which was done last year, as well as one for those SMEs in the machinery sector, but not only, that already operate here, the kind of incentives that they can get here in China. Second service is advice center. It's a sort of help desk that companies can use to ask any questions to us, including technical questions about standardization, about conformity assessment, or customs, or any technical regulation aspect, as well as general one, marketing, many aspects. And yeah, we have a database of FAQs, and I would like to show you also something that we have. It's called self-diagnosis tool. It's a sort of quiz. It's different quizzes actually that you can take, and there are different questions with multiple answers, and based on the answer that you select, at the end you will get, let's say, a score, an assessment, tailor-made assessment actually based on the answers, and with explanation of the answers, which one was maybe more appropriate, which one was not less appropriate, and then you will get a link to relevant resources we have, FAQs, or webinar recordings. So it's pretty fun. I invite you to do it. Third, we have a training center. Basically what we're doing today, we do workshops, webinars on, again, different sectors, different aspects, and of course you're welcome to submit any questions you have at any time. Also, we are going to have a Q&A session at the end, of course, but if you have any questions in the meantime, just please feel free to submit them now. By the way, this webinar today is going to be recorded, and the recording will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, where you can also find the recording of previous webinars. And last but not least, we have an advocacy platform for SMEs, basically a sort of working group that we have through which we try to disseminate information about upcoming regulations, drafts for comments, or we organize meetings on policies and so on. Very brief overview. We're going to have, actually we are in the last, June will be the last month of this phase of the USME Center. And we have a few other activities, including a final conference on the 10th of June, where we will share basically some of the main achievements in the phase, and we will anticipate what will come after, which it will be a new phase, obviously. So we're going to be around for a while. But you are very welcome to join to this. So now I think we can move into the main part of this webinar today. It's a great pleasure to welcome the first speaker, Mr. Marshall Chen, who is a partner at Fiducia Strategy Advisory. Marshall is based in Shanghai and has 15 years experience in Fiducia. He specialized in market analysis, mergers and acquisitions, strategy formulations, organizational change support, and many other activities. Marshall has extensive project experience working with multinational clients, SMEs, bigger clients in different industries. So Marshall, he's a very experienced person, and he's the right person to who you should ask questions. So Marshall, I'll give the floor to you now. Thank you again for being with us today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alessio, for the introduction, and also thank you for inviting us to give us this chance to exchange the information with all of you. Today, my topic, we're focusing on the China's machinery sector and talk about entry strategy and localization trend. Today, from Fiducia side, actually, we have two speakers, myself and also my colleague, Thaddeus Miller. For the coming 1 hour, this is the agenda. The first, we will have a brief introduction of ourselves, and as a management consultant or as an advisor for machinery is one of our focus sectors, and especially from the last 3 years, the localization is always a very hot topic for us to provide advice to our clients. To be success in the China market. That's why we are going to share some of the high-level views of the data, and also to explain the major drivers, especially the regulatory drivers behind this localization trend. And also for our advisory, normally they started with the challenges, and after the project, many clients saw more opportunities or are able to realize the opportunities. After that, we also have a brief introduction of the Chinese national standard, especially under the localization contest. This area also becoming more interesting for many international companies to take a more active role into that. From our many projects, we also develop assess framework to evaluate the overall localization challenges or pressure for different sectors, and also developed scenarios and also relevant entry strategies, for which we will also provide the case studies to explain this framework and also the entry strategy. That's for the first part, for the market and the entry part. And for the second part, actually my colleague Thaddeus, he will give more insights on how to recruit talents and retain talents in the machinery segments, and also give actual examples for the organization development for companies who are entering China, and what can be the key roles and CVs for the candidates will look like. Before we move into detail, here I also give a quick introduction of who Fiducia is. We are a German-founded management consultants company, and focusing on the Greater China and Southeast Asia market. And we set up in the year 1982, and this year, exactly in the June, will be our 40 years anniversary. In total, we have 120 talents to provide services to our clients. Here, just a snapshot of our clientele. Yeah, you can see that many of them actually are the small and the medium-sized companies from Europe, and also a lot of them are family-owned companies. They are focusing on the niche market, have many years experience in that specific segment, yeah, especially in the B2B and the industrial machinery areas. From here, you can see some names you are familiar with in the from the machinery, automotive, construction, medical, packaging machinery, so on and so on. Yeah, for the most of the contents we are going to share actually are from these actual projects to supporting this type of the clients. Yep, as a consultant, actually we would like to start with some of the market trends from the machinery side. On the left-hand side, you can see the chart. Yeah, this is the data we extract with the growth rate of China's fixed asset investment, and also that's the red data line, and also the machinery industry output growth rate. That is the gray color data line. So basically, this is shows from the customer side how much money they are spending for the buildings and also for the machineries. On the other side, also from the supplier side, what are the production output from the suppliers? You can see these numbers. Actually, this is starting from the year 2006 till now is already 15 years data. The first, you can see that for most of the time, actually for the growth rate, they are above 0, they are positive. Yeah, that means that for the overall China market, they are going in the last 15 years. Of course, there are different stages. For example, between the 2006 and the 2009, on the very left-hand side, you can see for China is at a very high speed growth period. And then actually it is hit by the global financial crisis, starting from the year 2008, 2009. You can see that from the machinery side, definitely they have a dip with the impact of the crisis. Yeah, but for the China government, they spend quite a lot of money. They released this stimulus package to boost the industry up. And then actually they are still leverage this high fixed asset investment to keep the high growth of the market. But from the year 2013 to 16, you can see that actually for the machinery industry output, they kind of like slowing down because the market getting a big situation and also more and more competitions in the market. For 2017 and 2019, they are a market also move into what we call the new normal period, for which for both the investment and also the output more slowing down. Yeah, of course, in between they are kind of like the expansion and contraction cycles. Yeah, but the market is more and more becoming more flat. And more interesting, of course, is for the last 3 years. Yeah, you can see this very radical changes from both the asset investment and also the industrial output due to the COVID, and also the fast recovery from the especially in the first half of 2021. Now we are experiencing another very unique situation of the COVID lockdown in China, in Shanghai. Yeah, that's why we also have a question mark here. We are also eager to see the latest number of this year and the impact to the near future. This is the big data for the industry. But on the right-hand side here, we also summarize some of the key drivers for the last 5 years. Of course, on one hand is the infrastructure investment. Yeah, especially before last year, from both the commercial and the residential real estate and also infrastructures are the key drivers for many market segments. Also, that reflected into the demand for certain machineries. For the second is the quality improvement. Yeah, this can see from almost all the customer sectors of the China side. All the customers, they are moving up the value chain. In the meantime, they have a higher quality requirement or higher value requirement from both the international and the local supplier side. And for the third is the industry automation. It's related, on one hand, there are less like working laborers in China, especially for the young working generations who are not willing to work in the industrial side. That's why for the automation, it become a critical demand, yeah, to maintain the industry level. And the last is the in China 2025. Yeah, this is one of the very important, I would say probably the most important industrial policies in the last 5 years, and also will impact the rest of 5 years, for which we will also give detailed analysis, yeah, in the coming slides. On the right-hand side, very right-hand side, yeah, from here, we can see that on one hand, also the market is becoming more and more flat. But on the other side, from our projects, there are also many segments. We see there are growing potentials. For example, like the testing platform, like the food and beverage, machineries, robotic automation, and also for the system integration service providers, they are also taking more market shares and also yeah, enjoy the certain market growth. Yeah, from here, actually, we will give a more detailed introduction of the Made in China 2025 policy, yeah, which, as I mentioned before, is the one of the most important drivers for the localization trend. For you, most of you, you're already familiar with China. China is a very top-down country, especially for the industry policies. And for this policy, actually, it's also released by the central government, announced in the year 2015, and also reflected in the 13th five-year plan, which ended in the year 2020, and also reflected in the 14th five-year plan, yeah, which just started last year. In this Made in China 2025 policies, the China government set up very specific industry targets, yeah, by the year 2025, yeah, and also provide incentives to push the industries, especially for the local companies, to move towards this target. And this, although that now we are at the middle or the second half of the Made in China 2025 policy, but from the original plan, yeah, there will be another follow-up plans up to the year 2049. So basically, this will have will continue to have a mid to a long-term impacts. From the top right, why they have this kind of the in China 25 policies. The first is that for the China government, actually they are pushing for the model change. Yeah, to more focusing on the quality, to slow the growth with value focus. In the meantime, they also want to build up the national champions from the Chinese companies and to have a better competition positions for both the emerging market and also the developed markets. In the meantime, for China, they also have some structural changes. For example, like this labor shortage and the rising costs. But for China, it's not a low-cost country anymore. That's why they need to have to move up the value chain, yeah, to conquer these issues. On the other hand, for the green development, for the environmental awareness, is also becoming more and more important for both the consumer and the customer side. For which industries are the focus? Yeah, so basically for this Made in China 2025, they have selected these 10 major industry segments to be the focus. And how? Yeah, so basically on one hand, for certain industries, for example, like the high-speed rail, you can see that actually they are building certain like the regulations or also build up the entry bars. On one hand, to develop local companies, but on the other hand, to also to push some of the international companies out of this industry segment. For us, some other segments are more, they are more from the commercial perspective. They are providing the financial support for many Chinese companies, to helping them to focus more on the R&D, to improve the qualities, and to move up the value chain in many key industries. In the meantime, they also support many Chinese companies to conduct M&A or to purchase foreign technology. Of course, for this option, for this measure, they are quite success in the year around 2015 to 2019. But after that, since for China government, they also cannot provide similar chance for the international companies to come to China to conduct M&As to the leading Chinese companies. For this, actually, for this channel, for this measure, actually becoming less active in the last 2-3 years. That's why for here also some snapshot for the regulation environment. As I mentioned, for the highlights from demand side, there are incentives for the for both the volume, but more important is the value growth. Also, there are rising environmental concerns, urbanization and the rising incomes from customer and consumer side. From suppliers, they also want to conquer the rising costs, be fast adoption of the new technologies and new business models, and also to support no new manufacturing requirement, and also, again, localization to encourage more international companies to set up the local production here in China, and also to provide technology, into the China market. Talking about opportunity and threats. This is also a very interesting part. The first is talk about opportunity. Because for many of our clients, they are internet companies focusing on the niche product, niche segment. And so normally they are the hidden champion or leading players in the area. On one hand, for the China market, there are still a requirement for the kind of the know-how for such kind of the high tech. Because even that the Chinese companies are developing, they are moving up the value chain, but for many materials, for the components and for the subsystems, actually they will still need the international companies support to help them, to develop. That's why I think for many our clients in the niche market, actually they are still have the very strong demand even under this in China 2025 or localization trend. The second point is that there are also opportunity for international companies to set up and conduct business in China, but also enjoying the incentives from this Making China 2025 program. One area actually is for this high-tech status. This is the second point I mentioned on the left-hand side. If you bring in certain technology, if you develop local technologies and set up the local R&D team and develop the local IPs, so there will be the tax incentives if you can meet the requirement in the high-tech status. For example, you are not for normal companies, for the company income tax will be 25%. But when you have obtained this high-tech status, your tax rate actually can be decreased to 15%. This 10% decrease actually is quite big, incentives. For the third, as I mentioned, overall China market still moving, and they're still going very fast than many other places. In the meantime, China market also have enough scale, especially if you have the products and the engineering capabilities, which can adapt to the Chinese customer needs. For many of clients, actually, for China, actually they are within the top 5 or even top 3 market. Apart from the home market on the US, and some of them even have the quite aggressive plan to develop China as the first #1 export market in the number 1 foreign market. in the next 3 to 5 years. And for the fourth, because some Chinese companies also moving out, in the meantime, actually, they will also need some of the local support of the international companies from both the component machinery side and also for the services. This also becoming one interesting revenue income stream for many of our clients. Last but not least, of course, on the right-hand side, I still mentioned there are like the IP issues, but in the last 3-5 years, definitely the IP situation actually are improving in the China market. When we talk about opportunities, of course, there are also challenges and threats, which is all we also listed on the right-hand side. The first one is the selective protectionism, especially for certain market segments. For example, like I just mentioned, for the high-speed rail, and also for example, in some of the medical areas, and also in some other areas. For example, later we also have cases in some of the infrastructure and the equipment areas. On the other hand, there are also quite weak leverage on the local policy makers, because they are, but their style are still quite close and not very open. IP issues are still there. On the other hand, for this cybersecurity and also for the data security, is also a rising topic in the last 3 to 5 years. And last but not the least, and the Chinese competitors, actually they are catching up and develop very fast. On one hand, they are together with the international companies to make the pie bigger in many new market segments. But on the other hand, they also eat up quite some market shares of certain segments if you cannot provide like advanced products or high cost performance products, ratio products to the China market. So basically this is the opportunity and threats under the kind of localization trend. Before we move into the detail, here also we have this introduction of the China national standard. Because in the past, and for many companies who are active in the China market, either import or produce in the local market, China national standard is important, but not too significant. Because normally Chinese standard, they are kind of make reference to the European or some international standards, but for the requirement normally are lower than those. That's why if you already have the international or European standard, you can somehow already fulfilled in the China market to, of course, with this or the compliance with the Chinese national standard. But interesting trend is that for the last 3 years, we also see that in many new segments, and for the Chinese industry players, and also for the associations and the government authorities, they are also trying to develop new Chinese standards in certain niche market. Sometimes I think it's new, or sometimes the requirement actually is higher than the international or European ones. For that, actually, sooner or later, this will also become kind of like the entry barrier for international companies. But so far, we also see that the good part is that in this national standard, for this standard committee who are developing the standard, actually they are still open to different players. We also saw that in many new segments, for example, in the supercharger for the e-vehicle, new energy vehicles, many international companies also participated in the communities in this committee, and also there are many international lobby groups. They are trying to influence this national standard. So sooner or later, I think this will also be interesting. If you are a niche market player and a niche market leader, you should also pay attention and also play a more active role into this area. Yeah, as I mentioned, we have receiving more and more localization requirements in the last 3 years. Yeah, based on that, actually, we also developed this assessment model. On the left-hand side, you can see actually based on the level of localizations, we divide the market or divide the localization competition into 4 scenarios. Yeah, based on the market structure. Probably I will start from the lower one, which have the low level of the localization. Yeah, the first scenario actually is open access and foreign dominated. For this scenario, actually is more popular about like 10 years ago. Yeah, in the last 5 years, it is becoming less and less. Yeah, for which the localization requirement remains low, and also fewer local players enter the market or active in the market. On the other hand, for the foreign brands, they still dominate the market, and normally they have their own positions and do not have direct competitions with the local suppliers. For this area, actually for the entry model, yeah, can still be the distribution, exclusive or the multiple distributors plus the sales organizations. Here, actually, we are going to provide our first market case. Yeah, this is the distributor search in the gas generator areas. For the background, actually, this is client is a leading company in the gas, natural gas or biogas power generator areas. For this area, for the segment with the high power bandwidth, for example, above the 2 megawatts, yeah, are still dominated by the international companies. There are Chinese companies also active in the area, but they are more focusing on the low end and below 2 megawatt bandwidth. That's why in these areas, they can still, yeah, for many clients, they are still, or many companies, they are still sell to the market through distributors. So in this case, actually, the client actually want us to help them to build up the distribution network, yeah, in the China market. Via this, actually, they have 2 requirements. On one hand, they want to have more clear market map or market information on the focus segments. On the other hand, and they will also like to us to help them to verify their current candidates, but also identify new candidates based on the market dynamic of those like the market segments. In the end, actually, we successfully help the client to search for and to sign up the distribution agreement with 3 distributors. How we do that? Yeah, you can see that because for their product, actually they can apply to many different market segments. You can see they are covering from coal mining, coal gasification, oil and gas, municipal waste, sewage waste, and liquid manure and the dew. For most of them, actually they have a very different market dynamics. And also they are sharing the different market growth patterns, have different demand for such a product. And more important, actually from the market analysis, we understand the value chain of this gas power generation, gas power generators, yeah, for each segment. So basically, we also identify that there will be no one distributor actually can cover more than 2 market segments here. And not to mention that China is that big, and also none of them can cover, yeah, half, even 1/3 of the China from the geographic perspectives. That's why in the strategy for searching for distributors, actually we will be quite segment focused. Yeah, that's why based on the 6 existing candidates, we also identify 5 more based on the different market segments. And based on this, actually, we also evaluate and to conduct due diligence to understand, yeah, their capabilities to deliver our clients' products in certain segments. So in the end, the client successfully signed up 3 distributors. Yeah, we recommended. And in the high potential segments, in this case, it's coal mining, municipal waste, and natural gas. This is also something you can consider if you are still using the distribution model here in China, because there are many, apart from the existing market segment, there also will be new market customer segments, industries you want to target. So normally 1 or 2 or your existing distributor might not be able to cover them all. There are potentials for you to also to looking for multiple distributors to realize the market potential. But on the other hand, since you are covering different market segments and also different distributors, it's very necessary, yeah, for you to also have a local sales organization here in China to understand, to give you the latest market feedback, also to monitor and manage the distributors for their sales and business development. But also for the marketing and brand message communication to the end customers. Yeah, for the manufacturer, actually, they still need to play a very important role here in China. So you put the old model of, or you only delegate all the business to 1 or 2 distributors to conduct the China market will be more and more difficult. That's why for setting up your sales organization, if you still don't have one, will be very critical, yeah, to be success in this, what we call the open access and the foreign dominated market. Okay, that's the first scenario. And for the second scenario is what we call the open access and local competitive market. Now, in this case, because for the market, for certain segments, there are rising localization trend. From the customer side or from the government side, they are push for the local productions or to have the local adaptation on the products to fit to the local requirement. That's why for the local, in the meantime, also from the competition side, for the local players, they are also develops and also have rising direct competitions with the foreign brand. In this case, actually, if the companies want to success in the China market, or sometimes even push by the customer side, they should have the local manufacturing, yeah, to on the China market. And some of them even can have the ask us to have the MA to help them to fastly to obtain the manufacturing capability to help them to assess and to realize the local market potentials. For this, actually, we also have want to present you one actual case. In this case, actually, the client is also a European company. They're focusing on the electrical components, tools, and the machine tools. And they also have very diversified industry applications, especially in the construction machinery, harbor cranes, in the robotic automation, food and beverage, so and so on. Yeah, in the client, in the past, they work with one exclusive distributor, yeah, to sell into multiple industry segments. But in the meantime, they are also receiving more and more requirement for them to set up their local production and local engineering team here in China. That's why before they make this such big investment decisions, they ask us as a third party to help them to conduct a market reality check on the customer requirement on those 4 or 5 focus segments. In the meantime, to help them to design the China entity structure and also conduct a location search, yeah, to suggest them where can be the right place for the manufacturing factory setup. For this, actually, we also conducted 3 modules. The first module, of course, also to verify the market demand. In this case, you can see because robotic and automation is one of their focus segments. That's why for here, we also conduct a market reality check. On one hand, we have this like big data, yeah, to see that the market demand. You can see here, actually for the Chinese, yeah, automation and the robotic manufacturers, actually they going very fast. With this, actually they also have a rising demand for some of the high quality components, especially from our client to support their product. On the right-hand side, you can see this actually for the population of the Chinese robotic per 10,000 workers, also rising very fast. This is partly also proof the effectiveness of this Make in China 2025 policy. You can see in the year 2015, which they released this Make in China 2025 policies. Yeah, for the Chinese players, yeah, for the population is only around like between 40 to 50 units robots per 10,000. But in the year 2020, actually they already reached 150. This is, by the way, this is also the target set by the Chinese government. And for the last year, actually the number even rose to 167. Yeah, so basically this is still very fast growing market. Of course, yeah, with this volume going and profits starting to going down, but on the other hand, if our client, they are still supplying from the European factory and then transport to the China market and then sell to the customers, the cost will be too high, yeah, for the Chinese customers requirement. In the meantime, for the Chinese customers, they also have quite high requirement for the customization and fast service cycle and delivery cycle to their product and the projects. Yeah, for this, actually, we also talk to both the competitors or customers to verify, yeah, the demand for this high-end product. We also do the same for the other 4 market segments. And talking about the localization support, one important part also for the location assessment. Because in this case, actually, they also want to set up a location for the manufacturer for the next 10 years. That's why they have this criteria for have the training environment, cost and beneficials, environmental, regulatory, human resources, and transportation. For this, we also use this funnel structure to help them to screen the site and regions and site and recommend the high potential locations. On the right-hand side, you can see the model and the scoring card we prepare for the site we recommended to help them to make the decision. With this, actually, all this, the report and also for this site selection support help our client to strengthen their confidence, to further move on the China market, and they use our report to report to the board and to get approval. And with our recommended site, they successfully set up the local manufacturing factory, to support the local market. Okay, now let's move to the third scenario, restricted access. For quite some market segments, we see this case. So there are rising localization requirement. And also for the local players, they are going very fast and also get majority of the market shares. That's why in this case, if purely depends on the international manufacturing capability to further expand to the China market will be difficult for both access and compete. In many of these cases, actually joint venture can be one of the entry models. But whether you want to take this option, that also depends. And this is the case we are going to show you. In this, actually, the client is a leading company in the construction or the infrastructure related machinery areas. And globally, and in Europe, they are a leading player But in the China, actually, they're facing these challenges. On one hand, they have a limited sales volume. They also have a relatively low brand awareness among the Chinese customers, and their prices are high. Although that their technology are very good, quality are good, but their lack of the competitiveness from the cost perspectives. Actually, the client and was approached by a Chinese state-owned enterprise, to set up a joint venture. Since this is also a very big decision, the client also engaged us to conduct a joint venture feasibility analysis. For this, actually, on one hand, they also want to have more transparency on the China market side to see how are the other international companies are doing. Are there short-term potentials for the client to quickly get more market shares? So basically, we are helping them to conduct analysis. Yeah. And from these slides, you can see some of the actual results from these market studies. So basically, on the left-hand side, you can see they are focusing on two major markets, product A and the product B. Yeah, but for both markets, actually, the shares for the international players are very, very limited. And for the Chinese side, especially for the mid to high-end market, actually are already occupied by the Chinese companies with the good enough technology and the good enough products. And again, already on one hand, for the product A, 80 to 90% of the market shares. On product B, already 60 to 70% of the market shares. Yeah, we also verify from the customer side and the potential to adopt the high price, high quality products is very, very low. Yeah, so this is the reality actually we presented to our client. In this case, of course, joint venture is an option. Yeah, but in the end, our client decided not to carry on this option because after this assessment, they realized that for China market, in the short to mid term, it's still not a market for their high quality product. So they would rather to postpone their China activity and wait for more times, have more patience. Yeah, they will re-enter the China market again after the market become more mature, more admire the qualities. Yeah, so basically this is the scenario of the for the restricted access. In most cases, I will say for the three scenarios from bottom, open access and foreign dominated, open access and local comparative, restricted access. Yeah, these are the most common scenarios we face in the China market together with a client and provide a suggestion and strategic and implementation support. Yeah, in the meantime, now come to the end of my part. Yeah, for the localization Chen and the entry strategy. Here I also want to summarize some of the key points. On one hand, China market still a very interesting market, but of course there are a lot of disruptors or the different requirement. For example, not only from the consumer side, there are young dynamic consumers, but also from the industrial customers, from the local companies. Actually, they also have a very fast cycle. They always want to try some new concept, a new product very fast. If success, actually they will quickly invest more to help the supplier to expand the market shares. But there are also chance that actually they fail, but rather to fail earlier, to have to move to another directions. The second point is that for China, the scale are still there. If you have the right product, can fit the requirement, as I mentioned, you can also scale up very fast. The third, there are more and more requirements for the products. They have the local R&D element, which you can adapt to the local requirement. In this case, also the fast turnaround cycle and the speed to the market are very important. Yeah, and for many of the customers, they would rather have to try and error approach. Yeah, and also, yeah, they're in China, in many clusters, they still have this large scale workforce help you to realize this market potential. And how to realize this and how to handle this market entry for the localization competitive market. The first, you need to have the products which are more adapt to the local market requirement to expand your product portfolio. And also, you need to consider whether to have the new locations, new channels, to cover the new market segments. Of course, more localization from the sales engineering part and also from the manufacturing part, to react fast to the market and to speed up the internal process. And new cross-border team, this also become more and more critical under current, the COVID lockdown and the travel restriction situations. For some of the projects, how to leverage both the international mindset, but also the local understanding. How to set up the team. My colleague Thaddeus, actually later, he will talk more about these areas. Last but not the least, and also now we see more cases to build strategic partnerships. Because in the past, and more companies tend to have the WOFE, wholly owned enterprise, to have the full control of the companies and to enter the market. But for the last 3 years, we also see more chances, for the companies, international companies, to partner with the local partners, especially for those companies, they already have the business connections, business relationships, to build up joint ventures, to accelerate, the entry to certain market segments. This is a summary of my part of the localization trend in the market and the entry strategy. If you have questions, feel free to type that in the chat box. We can discuss that in the later part.
Maybe
for here, I will hand over to Alessio. And
Thank you, Marshall, for this excellent presentation. I think it was very insightful, especially the scenarios, the market entry models. I think I personally appreciate it a lot. Before moving to the next presentation, maybe I would like to make one small comment, which maybe it's not on the core part of your presentation, but it's something that happened to us last week. So I would like to take on that. We talked about green development as one of the key drivers and one of the key aspects to pay attention to. Actually, last week, we received this email from an European company producing like a gas burner. And actually, they found a client in Xinjiang province.
Okay.
So what I'm saying, what I want to say with this comment is that green development is not something that is happening just in Shanghai, Jiangsu, Zhejiang, Beijing, but also in inland regions, southwest China, northwestern China, and this is driven by the the local governments actually was pushing this local Chinese plant to substitute their almost obsolete burners with the imported ones. Well, of course, the company in question already has a sales, has some operations in China already, so it's not entirely imported. So I just this is something that we came across last week. So I think it's a very interesting thing. Consider also other locations. Maybe also one question. We have one question. Of course, there will be a Q&A session at the end. And of course, if you have questions, please submit them in the Q&A. But maybe I think we could address this question before moving to the next presentation.
Okay.
So we have talked about this market entry scenario models. What about companies that are already here? Because of course, among the audience, we have people representing companies already operating here. So how would companies already operating in China would address, handle these challenges and opportunities from localization?
Yeah, actually, this is a very good question. Yeah, because we are not only handle the market entry, but also for the companies who already established here in China for 10, 15 years. Yeah, we are also supporting them to adapt further to the China market. For them, actually, they are focusing on several areas. Of course, the first is for the product, because we are also seeing more of these companies. Actually, they are set up like the pure local engineering or local design products. Because in the past, most of these products are still originated from the headquarters. Yeah, but now they have more developing this in China and for China products. Yeah, to have the more Chinese springs and Chinese material, and more important, Chinese cost structure to target the local market. The second is from the manufacturing side. Yeah, actually, they are also trying to have a more distributed manufacturing structures. Yeah, for example, normally they started with the in the areas like close to those like developed areas like Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou area, but now actually they are also cleverly try to have a diversified manufacturing site. In the meantime, to carefully and to smartly to allocate resources. For example, like the high value added R&D, which they are still investing, increasing around close to the tier 1 city or developed areas. But for the more labor intensive productions, actually they are putting to the inner China or West China, from the labor cost and also from the environmental perspectives. And for the third is for the overall organization and the entity structure. Yeah, they are also trying to have more adapt to the local situations. One good example is after COVID, actually more companies asking us how to, from the company structure perspectives, how to set up more diversified or distributed organization. Not have all the, I would say, for example, all the resources within one company in Shanghai, but rather to set up like the satellite offices or some of these like satellite R&D centers, to help to diversify the risk and also become more close to the local customers, to serve them well and also to react fast to the market.
Thank you, Marshall, for the great for the answer. There's another question in the chat, but maybe we can address it in a bit in the Q&A section. Next presentation is going to be a bit shorter. Maybe I will also quickly share my screen because I feel I haven't introduced Thaddeus properly, and I'm sorry for that. But yeah, I'm doing it now. So again, it's a pleasure to welcome the second speaker today, Thaddeus Miller, who is partner at the Fiducia Executive Search. And basically his expertise is to find innovative solutions for clients seeking to establish their presence in either mainland China or Hong Kong. He's very experienced in this. He's also very renowned in China, and maybe I'll leave a more detailed introduction to you, Thaddeus, and of course at the same time, thank you for being here. And I'll stop sharing my screen now, so you can share yours again.
Thank you, Alessio, for the introduction, and thanks, Marshall, for sharing all these insights. So, just a bit of background to me. I joined Fiducia in 2005 in our office in Hong Kong. And for the last 10 years, I've been involved with recruiting, with executive search in China. In fact, in Greater China, we also do some work in Southeast Asia, but today we really want to focus on mainland China. I'm very excited about the potential in this market for SMEs. By now, our team in executive search, in fact, is 10 colleagues strong, and we often help European SMEs in making those first steps into the market. You've heard from Marshall how many challenges there are in terms of finding the right structure and finding the right strategy, the right approach for your growth. And if you thought it's going to get easy now with recruiting, I have to disappoint you. There's definitely a few more challenges ahead for you, regardless if you want to start your organization from scratch to hire your very first talent, or whether it is to grow and expand. But I think it's always very exciting challenges, and there's definitely ample opportunities in China. What you see on this slide here that I want to talk about is a summary of the expectations that SMEs approach us with when finding the ideal talent for their market entry or their market growth situation. And I'm just going to pick out 2 or 3 of those and explain to you what I mean by them. I think every candidate briefing starts with, or at least it's one element during the briefing, we need somebody who is hands-on. And I certainly agree. This is absolutely important. And there are differences in Chinese talents. You will perhaps find great leadership, and you can recruit somebody from a large organization, but there's always the questions: how eager are they to roll up their sleeves? How eager are they to really get things done quickly? And I think this is what our clients are looking for when they request a hands-on talent. And often this is connected to the point right next to it, to understand Mittelstand. This is a German word for SME. Understand the background of mid-sized companies in China. And we found over time that there are talents who fit in better into this environment, and there are talents that don't fit in. And we have internally developed a methodology where we can assess the suitability of these candidates. This is often also paired with what machinery companies are looking for in particular. Talents who are able to sell via the quality of the product and not purely by the price. Often you find Chinese sales candidates who come from a pure domestic background. They've always worked for Chinese companies. They will sell with rebate lists. They will sell with discounts. They reduce their price, but this is not what most Western machinery companies use as a market strategy. They want to understand the customer need and they want to provide a solution. And of course, this is a skill set which you need to evaluate with candidates. Same thing here on the top right. We often get the request that we need talents who combine different disciplines. So we require talents who have an engineering understanding. Western machinery is often complicated, and understanding the solutions these machinery can provide requires experience, requires certain intellect. But often if you're strong on engineering, you might not have that sales skill. And hence, a demonstrated success in both of these areas is what our clients are looking for. Last point, maybe before I move to the next slide, is this on the bottom left, experience with matrix or dual reporting lines. I want to say that 80 or 90% of the candidates that we place, they do not have a singular reporting line. There's often relatively complex requirements to someone on the technical side, someone in the sales team, maybe even to top leadership. Often the China subsidiary is of such importance because of its growth chances that the leadership candidate in China is pinned to maybe even the owner of the company back in headquarters. And this, of course, requires a very different communication ability than if you were just reporting to somebody who's next door. And I think all these elements are important when you consider what the ideal candidate can fulfill. Now, a combination of all those factors is usually impossible. We always have to make a compromise. And of course, if you can fulfill all these parameters, it drives up the salary of the individual. So, in the end, everything has to make sense, has to be reasonable from a business perspective. That is why many of our clients have decided to start their organization small. And if we look at the next chart, we will see two examples of how you can establish this organization. And it's very much in parallel to what you've heard from Marshall. So on the left side, you probably see the outfit that a client is planning to set up in the year 1 to 2. It's probably challenging to build something like that within just 6 months. So it's maybe a time span of 12 to 24 months. And this model, as you can see, relies on usually in the first year, the exclusive relationship with a distributor in China. So let's say you have a machinery to sell, which you manufacture in Europe, you import 100% into China. What is the first role that you're going to hire, and how are you going to structure this the subsidiary company? We often get tasked, of course, with hiring the leadership, the managing director or the GM position for this business, but this might not be the only solution or the only avenue you can take. Often it's maybe more reasonable to put a talent in who has a very strong sales focus as the first talent, so a sales director or a senior sales manager, and then let this individual help to establish and to grow the organization, maybe move into the GM or the MD role and hire his own successor, and then gradually also hire a team structure below the sales colleague. Of course, usually the very first demand by your customers in China, once you've sold, let's say, a couple of dozens of machinery, is technical support. They will want to have somebody who can do after sales, service, perhaps repairs, perhaps somebody who is strong on trainings. And usually this is, after the sales manager, the sort of second focus on the role. So you may need technicians, engineers. You may, and this you've heard also from Marshall's presentation, invest into understanding the actual demand of your Chinese customers, for which in turn a really locally based product manager may be required. And we've hired this position quite a number of times. It's essential that this person has a very good communication to headquarters, because he's the kind of linkage between understanding your customers. So he needs to have, of course, excellent Chinese. In most cases, this will be a domestic talent, but usually they need to report back the market demand into headquarters. Hence, this can be a very tricky role to recruit. Let's fast forward 3 years, 4 years, and look on the right side of this chart. You will see a much more developed organization chart, and this is based on the fact that usually after this amount of time, clients consider to open a localized assembly or a full-fledged manufacturing. Many of the clients that we've worked with over the past years, they have had excellent sales success. But of course, the demand by their customers comes faster and faster in the direction of we want a localized product, perhaps really focused on the Chinese market demand. We may want, faster delivery of products, which is always easier if you have a local warehouse where you store, if you have a localized supply chain, and if you can really assemble a made in China for China product. And this, of course, requires also a more comprehensive team, requires, I think, different leadership. That's why perhaps the role of the general manager in the second example here on the right is a far more comprehensive role, because you can see below is still, of course, the sales responsibility and maybe the management of a variety of different distributors. But then there's also leadership for anything related to finance, accounting, controlling, This is of course far more complex than in the startup phase. And then there is the leadership for operations, for a production manager, or perhaps for managing the outsourced assembly, because some of our clients are also using third-party assembly capabilities, which of course you can buy in the market. Usually at this point in time, clients ask about, well, yeah, this looks like an interesting plan. This looks like a comprehensive roadmap. What should we write in our business plan in terms of salary cost? And on the next chart, we have a bit of a snapshot of two of our recent recruiting projects. And we can see from this, perhaps what you can roughly calculate for talents in different positions. The first role where we recruited a general manager with, I have to say, a bit of a sales focus for a machinery company from Germany. And on the final shortlist, we had a bit of a blend of candidates, because the client wanted to see really what's the availability in the market, what is the best fit. And we did not have a very closely defined salary range. That's why you also see on the right-hand side, there were two candidates who were roughly around 800,000 RMB. And then there was one outlier, a very suitable, but also much more senior candidate who was already at a package of around 1.5 million. So it's very hard to exactly narrow down the bandwidth that you need to calculate without knowing the background, the requirements. Usually we can base a good salary estimation on reviewing a job description. And then the factors that usually account for are the location. That's a driver. Are you in a big city like Shanghai or Beijing? Or are you perhaps a bit further outside in sort of more industrial areas? Salaries tend to be a bit lower in this environment. Of course, at the same time, it's essential what kind of experience the candidate comes with and what you require. Of course, degrees, if you need an engineering talent from one of the reputed universities in China, that leaves an impact and that drives up the demand. And then, of course, it is how, let's say, smart the individual candidate has changed their employment in the past. And we tend to eliminate job hoppers. Of course, we want to have stability in our clients' teams. And we also see sometimes job hoppers, candidates that have changed their employers every 1.5 to 2 years. They're just out of the budget range because they've gotten salary increases with every job change. And then they might be already at levels that are not relevant or interesting anymore. If we look at the second example, a more sales-oriented, business development-oriented profile, this time for a location in North China. Again, we have a blend. We had candidates relatively junior in the early 30s, but also more senior towards 40 years of age. Again, a bit of a blend of what you can get. The more junior talent here has been around 400,000 in terms of annual salary, and then more senior talents in this case went up to over 800,000. The amount that you see here is usually the all-in package. So that means this has 12 or 13 months worth of salary, and then a variable part, especially for sales-oriented roles, which can be up to 30-40% of the total compensation. usually we only talk about additional components when we have real leadership. So that means the country manager or the MD, GM of a position, who would then also require, for example, a car allowance or a travel allowance, maybe even a housing support if they have a relocation. But this gives you, a rough snapshot of what you need to calculate. On the last slide that I'm going to show you today, before we go into a Q&A, I have summarized a bit what we currently see in the market when we're recruiting for European SMEs. I think the environment could not be more special. Our colleagues in Shanghai will hopefully, exit their long lockdown period now. And of course, these over 2 months have made some big impact on recruiting. And I think in the next couple of months, you've all heard this in the press, we'll probably see a lot of people change their jobs. It's either Western managers, you see this here as my point number 4, who are going to leave the country. But we also expect a lot of movement within Chinese candidates. In the US, they've called this the big wave of resignation. I could imagine that something similar is going to happen over summer and the rest of the year. What all of you definitely also have to deal with is item 1 on this list here, the attractiveness and EVP, the employer value proposition of your business. And I think, difficult news here. This has gotten a lot more challenging for small SMEs. Why? Well, in the old days, when we recruited for a European company with a market entry plan, it was relatively easy. We spoke to a number of candidates. Everyone was excited to work for a Western company. I'm talking about Chinese candidates now. It had a big attractiveness to work, for example, for a German machinery company. I think over time, especially the last 3-4 years, Chinese employers have gotten more interesting. Definitely with the localization trends that Marshall mentioned earlier, it's not as easy for Western companies anymore to attract the top tier talent in their field, simply because there is great competition from Chinese domestic companies who pay excellent salaries by this time. So we definitely have to work harder to attract the best talents for our clients and for the searches we do. Another big factor, I think, is item 2 and 3 here on this list. Every one of you who is running an operation in China is aware of the fact that you haven't seen your colleagues for over 2 years, probably 2.5 years already by now. And of course, this changes the culture. This has impacts on how you can manage teams, how you can motivate your colleagues. And of course, we have had and are continuously having this challenge to recruit without face-to-face interviews. I think by now, all of the companies in Europe have understood if they want to continue in China, they need to be able to make this decision just purely based on how we talk today via Teams or via Zoom. But it definitely continues to be challenging. And related to this movement in the market, related to the many Western managers who are leaving China, of course you have to have a succession plan in place for your business. And our recommendation is to start this the sooner the better. I know of companies that have like 5-year plans in place, which is very smart, because what you don't want to happen is that your GM, who has been there for many years, is just telling you, oh, it's bye-bye, I'm leaving in 2 months, and you have no fallback position for your organization. So work on these plans very strategically, build up talent, build up a talent pipeline. Ideally, you will also have a network over time with candidates that you can speak to, that you keep in touch with, that can maybe join your business once there is a vacancy. Because the war for talents, that's my next point here, we expect is going to have a higher intensity. Just simply think of those many European machinery companies who are still led by European talents. If, as they give as a prognosis, half of them are leaving, then they need replacements. And if these replacements are all recruited from the same talent pool, which is, domestic talents, then this intensity, this war for talents is just going to get higher. Next point, and then I'll conclude here, is compliance. Of course, not having had the chance to visit for more than 2 years is getting a compliant management of your subsidiary more complicated. What do I mean by this? Well, really the whole 9 yards. Compliance can, of course, mean that local employees are not following your international guidelines in all different aspects, maybe in your travel allowance, but also in terms of your HR and recruiting processes. Things are not monitored, things are not supervised. So very quickly the local subsidiary is changing or amending the business practices according to their preferences. And this is something that we believe you should not tolerate as a Western business, and you should put in checks and balances to ensure that your compliance standards are always met. And then, last point here is really a summary of all of the points mentioned above. Of course, salary expectations will again go in the same direction as they have in the last 20 years. And that is most likely up, simply because of this higher intensity, higher demand. And we see it in some recruiting projects where we often recruit in a niche, in a very niche industry. So we may have in the end a short list of 5 to 10 talents who can really do the job. And usually these talents also know about their market worth, and they know about what they can request in terms of salary. So this is definitely some of the more challenging part to really carve out your employer value proposition, to equip the position with a attractive salary package, to make sure that you get the best talent recruited. And if you need help in this, of course, we're here to support you. And with this, I want to conclude and hand back over to Alessio. Thank you.
Thank you, Thaddeus, for this excellent presentation. Maybe as we are running out of time, maybe I would not make any comments, even though we have a few. But maybe I'll just go directly straight to one question that we got. So we talked about this, of course, 2.5 years of distance, of virtual meetings, Zooms. So what would be your advice to your clients who are concerned about recruiting leadership position without this face-to-face kind of interview feeling that you get, which sometimes I think in my experience is one of the most important factors, I think, in making decisions. So how do you advise your clients generally?
Yeah, that's really tricky, but we've gotten this question very often. So there are 2 or 3 aces up our sleeve or items in our toolbox. Number one is we recommend to take the stress out of these video conferences, meaning rather split them up into shorter sessions with your final candidate. Let's say have half an hour with your HR, have half an hour with your leadership, half an hour with the technical team, rather than, you know, one big meeting, 2-hour conference with the candidate where like 5 different people interview him or her. So, you know, slice it up and get your own impression, and then regroup and discuss about your feeling for this candidate. Usually gives you a chance to make better decisions. So that's number one. Number two is personality tests. So Fiducia has been an accredited a company for a very comprehensive personality test, and we can support with this analysis. So does this give you the perfect answer if your candidate is the right one? No, it does not. But it gives you a very interesting and in-depth set of data about this candidate. How are they motivated? How do they operate under stress, under pressure? What drives them? How is their leadership? So, you know, you can drill a lot deeper, which usually in a video interview you find out part of it. But these personality tests and the reports about each candidate give you really a lot more in depth. And then last item is, many of our clients have found a solution to still conduct one face-to-face interview. For example, they have in China a long-term partner or a long-term advisor, and they have used this person then to conduct one face-to-face interview and give them their impression about the final candidate. So that means you cannot see them in person, but you have somebody that you trust who will take this interview on your behalf and then brief you afterwards. And this usually gives you a good insight, especially if you've worked with this partner for a long time.
Yeah. That's actually we heard this from a few companies before, like delegating like a close friend or thank you for this. Maybe I would like to go back to the previous question that was asked in the chat. I will read it out. That is going to be for you, Marshall.
Okay.
So do you still recommend the joint venture approach in view of the extreme difficulties of running such entities? Do you have any successful example of joint venture in China between EU SME and Chinese partners? Well, I mean, I can also tell you there are many, but yeah, Marshall, I'll give the floor to you.
Yeah, for my side, I would say I've seen actually companies become a bit more flexible compared to 5 years ago regarding for the joint ventures. This is, I think, on one hand, because it's a localization or restrictions, but on the other hand, especially for the SMEs, yeah, and now to enter China, actually the cost is quite high, yeah, if we enter by ourselves. However, I would say of course, there are successful case, but the case is that more that the company to cooperate with the partners they know for years, or they already have the business relationships. If I would say if European SMEs, they to have a joint venture with Chinese company, they haven't worked before, I would say the successful rate is very low, or I would say there will be a lot of risks. Yeah, but on our side, actually, we have several cases. The client actually they have a joint venture, yeah, or the MA or with their distributors or suppliers. Yeah, they have worked for many years. They have the transparency on their actual situations. Yeah. In the meantime, they're also facing some of these like opportunities. For example, for some of them, actually, they have the chance to enter one new segment. And for some of them, actually, for its distributor is going to retire. Yeah, that's why I think they also want to give up what they already developed in the China market. Then our client have the chance to move in. I will say there are chance, but still, I will say rather to have a cooperation, joint venture cooperation with the company you know. Otherwise, I will not recommend.
Thank you, Marshall. Okay, so I guess we can wrap it up here. Of course, if there will be other questions, you are very welcome to send them to us by email. We will put you in touch with Marshall and Thaddeus. Their contacts were also shown in the previous slide, so feel free to approach us. This is a QR code here for a short feedback survey that we will really appreciate if you could fill. It will take just a couple of minutes to and then yeah, we would also like to hear from you if you have suggestions for other webinars, for other topics. There is one section exactly on this. So as a last reminder, we're going to send the slides to all the participants by email. We are going also to upload the recording on our YouTube, and yeah, we hope you found this webinar useful. That's it, I would say. Thank you again all for participating. Thank you, Marshall and Thaddeus, for your excellent presentations and for doing this together. And yeah, look forward to seeing you next time and to working together next time.
Thank you. See you next time.
Bye.